Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Chicago Techies podcast, a podcast focused on highlighting the voices of Chicago Techies and their experiences. I'm your host, Ceci Fisher-Benitez. Thank you for joining us. On this week's episode, I am joined by Yvonne Gonzalez, account executive in multicultural public relations at ICF Next. Hey, Yvonne, thanks so much for joining me on this week's episode of the Chicago Techies podcast. It's been a long time coming. It's been a crazy few weeks, but we're glad to be back. But yeah, I'm excited to have you and learn more about your journey and your accomplishments, and as you know, you've kind of navigated the industry as well. So why don't we get started? Let's start with your name, your pronouns, where you're from, and your current role.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Yvonne Gonzalez, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And first of all, I'm excited to be here, Cecilia. Thank you for having me. My current role right now is an account executive at ICF Next, where I primarily focus on multicultural public relations. And I just realized, I was going through my LinkedIn page, and I'm around 5 years now in PR communications.
That's awesome. I mean, it's been a long time, right?
Yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, and you are originally from Palm Springs, California.
Yeah.
You were pretty close to the Valley, so I'm kind of curious if you always knew that you wanted to go into tech, or how was that journey for you getting started, right after school, or how did you get to where you are?
You know what's funny? Just being from in California, and Southern California, and there was only one time I think I heard about Silicon Valley, and it was in a science class. But I that's all I knew as a teenager, young adult. And then even so, I went to school to San Jose State. So I started my education career at community college in the Coachella Valley. And then I decided to get out of, where I'm from and try something, new, a new area. And I had family in the Bay Area. And I applied to San Jose State University and got accepted. So I had visited the Bay Area before, and I always loved it. And so I just knew it was meant for me to go to San Jose State University. But even then, when I moved there and went to San Jose State, I didn't realize that area was what it is, what we know now, this tech hub. It's one of the places where when we think of tech, we think of the Silicon Valley, right? So it never really sinked into me till I got into tech. And that leads into how I got into tech. So when I graduated college, so I majored in communications. That's what I got my degree in. I was still working as a bartender at this restaurant in Palo Alto. And graduated college, I had really no idea what I wanted to do, what industry I wanted to get. I just knew I wanted to get into something with communications. I always loved working with people, loved writing, and I just knew that's something I wanted to continue to do. But there was one day I was bartending, and it was one of our regulars that comes in. She sat down and we started talking about me. And I just had told her, I graduated college. This is what I'm interested in. And this is what I majored in. And so then she had told me that her mother company, Opera Software, Cecilia, I don't know if you're familiar with Opera, but it's one of the super OG browsers. It's the big red O.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, one of the OG browsers. So she had told me that they were looking for an intern for digital communications. And I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a really cool role. She's like, let me take your resume. I'll submit it for you. And then we'll go from there. So they reached out to me, did the interview, and got my first job in tech.
That's wild. Is it the power of networking, the power of talking to people at a bar, it's ridiculous, how you don't expect things to go, you expect to go like the traditional route of like, oh, submitting your interview, like your resume in like all these websites and hopefully get an internship. But
Yeah.
yet, like, it's so funny how the world works, right? Where you meet someone at a bar and that literally is like the next person that will hire you. Like, it's crazy to me. I love the power of networking and the power of just like opening up to people and talking to like strangers, even in the weirdest settings. Which is funny because I was gonna ask, like, after school, like, how did you get your first like internship or like the first opportunity? So that pretty much explains it. That's crazy. I love that story. How long were you there at that company?
Yeah. So after I, got my foot in the door at Opera Software, I was there for about 2 years. I started as an intern and then eventually got hired into a full-time job as a communication specialist. And that's where I really got my foot in the door into public relations, since I was supporting a lot with public relations initiatives for the US. And then also I was helping with Latin American. So I was doing both like Latin American PR and then for the US. So it was cool to, having my first job in tech. Um, I will forever be grateful for that role because that role really set the foundation for where I am today.
Yeah. And it's interesting that was such a like a almost like it was a tech company, right? It was a software company. So like were you looking for like a tech company specifically after college, or were you just looking for whatever, like any business association or like, whatever company, or was that just your intention?
I was open to anything, at the time, freshly graduated. I was applying to internships, whatever, got my foot in the door. And so my intention was not to get into tech, but I was open to it. And so I was applying to different types of companies.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, All right. So I want to, what was next after that? Like, where did because I know, I mean, obviously you're in Chicago now. So let's get to that part. But let's follow kind of your trajectory. So after that company, what happened next?
Yeah, so this is where things got interesting. So after 2 years of being with Opera, I had Opera had laid off a bunch of people, including the marketing PR team. And at the time, I was already, playing around with the idea of moving somewhere else. And so I was at the Silicon Valley, so going to school there and working there for 4 years, a little over 4 years around there. And then I think I was just ready to, move somewhere else. I feel like it was time for me to challenge myself a little more and just try to get out of my comfort zone because I think I just got, I got comfortable in where I was in my career. And I think the silver lining to that was getting laid off. So, you know, I eventually, I met Alicia and she was from Chicago. And then she was the one who really inspired me to move out of where I'm from, out of a city that's different than me, because that's what she did. And I was like, I think that's something I want to do. I think that's the next chapter for me. So then it was a colleague who was working at the company that I was from, Opera. So she had told me, I stayed in touch with her, and then we connected and we talked about, how I could support her, in her company. So I did a little freelancing there, and that's where I got my foot in the door to more B2B tech PR, which was totally different than what I was doing at Opera, where Opera is more consumer based. So I learned about the B2B space there. And then while I was doing freelance work there in 2017, that's when I decided to move out here to Chicago too and take my chance. And I was already looking for roles. I was applying. But I think I needed to be here physically in order to have more opportunities. And that's exactly what I did. And I landed my PR agency role at Tech Image, which is they did B2B, B2C PR for tech companies.
Yeah. Awesome. And here's a couple of things. A couple of things that I want to touch on that you made points about that I think are important to definitely discuss. So first thing, getting laid off. That sucks. It's awful. It's really like, I mean, obviously we now think that a lot of the times when you get laid off, there's silver lining like moments and they're kind of like transformative and stuff, but it's awful on your mental health sometimes. Like you think that um you don't feel like yourself, because you're wondering what happened, or is it you, is it me, like, there's so many questions that go through your mind, and it's such a difficult time to go through. And like especially right now with COVID, like thousands and thousands of people got laid off, and myself included before COVID. I was off for a few months, and that was really difficult to navigate, but it's something that happens that is so real to a lot of people, and definitely something that is like, if you are, struggling, if you are going through something like that, like don't beat yourself up. It's everybody goes through it. It's really difficult to get through it, but finding just like the good in a lot of that can be challenging, but it's just like keep going. You might be wounded, but you'll be okay.
Yeah, it was my first time getting laid off. My big, my first job out of college, and it's like you do beat yourself up. And I look back at that Yvonne, and I just want to hug her and be like, "You're gonna be fine." But and then you have all these cheerleaders around you. You have your mom, your parents, your partner, you have friends. But at the moment, you think it's you. And I always go by this saying, it's like you have to be your biggest cheerleader, even in the hardest times, because
Mhm.
I've had, when I first got laid off my first job, I had some really great colleagues, and I got some really great insight, like this is not the first time it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you just you just got to realize that things will always work out. Don't be yourself up. You got to take it day by day. You will get rejected. There will be that one interview you felt like you killed it, you did amazing, and then you get that email where they say, they're going to, move on to someone else, and then
Yeah.
you start thinking like, am I not good enough? And no, it's not that. There's so many things that go behind that at the moment you don't think like that. But then you have to, I feel like now that I can tell myself now, like if that were to happen again, that scenario, I'd just be like, be patient with yourself and enjoy the process while you're at it.
Yeah, I mean, I because like when I was looking for a role, and COVID was happening and everything, I had a lot of free time, and guess what? Like that's where this came from. This like podcast came out of that. Like, there are so many other things that you can do to kind of like upskill and just like learn new things, and being patient is definitely like a challenge. Because you're definitely like battling a lot of demons, but you're gonna be fine. Like if you're listening and you're not doing great, like please, like just keep your head up. Like it's gonna be just fine. And then the other thing I wanted to discuss was freelancing. I have no idea, like not I don't know anything about freelancing or how it works. But I feel like there's a lot of people that are always curious about freelancing and how to go about that, and like what is the best way to go about that, because I feel like there's tax implications, there's like other, like it's like your own business kind of thing. I'm curious to hear your take about freelancing and how that works in your space, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in communications, because not just in PR, but just in like journalism too, there's a lot of freelancing. I mean, you meet a lot of freelancers and reporters, and tech, or just in general. And I was very lucky that I had a colleague who had offered me this opportunity. So this was my first time even, getting exposed to a freelance role. And for the first time doing freelance, I I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I learned about setting a schedule for yourself, and also just being able to work on different types of accounts and types of work. Like there's opportunity to do your role, do what, what your expertise is, but, also learn other things while you're doing freelance. And so what I would say about freelancing is it's a good way to expose yourself to other clients or other type of work that you might not otherwise get at at a regular full-time role. Everyone should try it in their career at least once. Like even if you have a full-time job, give yourself the opportunity to work on other types of projects that you wanted to work on, or expose yourself to different things. And that just builds on to your experience and then you're learning too along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I feel like it's something I'm not sure how in my line of work that would fit, but I think if the opportunity came, I may definitely consider like just to learn about it. And I mean I like that whole like learning experience and like just it makes sense. So speaking of like learning and experience, like I know that you've been in Chicago for a few years, couple of years now. You started like you mentioned earlier at Tech Image for a little while when you returned from or when you moved here. Can you tell me like about mentorship experience? Like how was that experience at Tech Image, or how have you kind of like push yourself to grow and to be mentored, I guess, if you will, and find that kind of like next step for you and finding your connections?
Yeah, so I used to be, when I first started going to events in my career, it was scary, like connecting with people, because you feel like you feel like someone doesn't want to talk to you, or you're gonna say the wrong. There's all these like, you get a little anxiety, having to put yourself out there a little bit. But over time, obviously, that gets better. But I think for me, what really set it off with a mentor was my first manager, Amir. Shout out to Amir. He really shaped the beginning of my career. And even to this day, I stay in touch with him and we talk. And I look to him when I need help with like, my resume or things like that, or just career advice. So I think having that first manager who really just was very open and willing to teach me. And even at the time, I didn't think like, oh, this is a mentor. I just like, this is a good manager, is he really guided me. He was always open to teaching me. And like I said, to this day, I connect with him and get guidance on just like, just career stuff, or just someone to talk to when I can. But then I think what really set it off for me even more is in connecting with other people and finding different kind of mentors. Is sometimes you realize you don't realize you have a mentor, but that person is your mentor. It can be your best friend, it can be someone you work closely with that you don't give that official title to. But I know, like Cecilia, I look up to you a lot, and I know I've gone to you a lot for just like guidance on things. Even when we've done like Latinas and Techies events, is like, did I do well in this? Like in this introduction, just things like that. That really goes a long way when you have people like that around you. And then seriously, through Latinas in Tech, I think I've gotten out of my comfort zone to connect with other people. I know, Concepcion. There's been a couple times where I've reached out to her. Not too long ago, we talked about I needed some insight, some professional, career insight. So I went to her, and just even when you don't give that official title to someone, there's so many mentors that surround me, including yourself, including the group of people that we have. And it took me to this point in my career to realize that there's people around me that I consider a mentor in one way or another that have guided me in my career.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. That makes sense. I mean, and thank you for that. I appreciate that. I feel like I can relate a lot to what you said. I think I had a manager back a few years ago at the fintech company I used to work at, and she was my very first manager. I don't really count people that were my manager at Groupon because that was like a different role. But her Jen Dudley, she is great. Like I've learned so much from her. It's ridiculous the amount of respect that I have for her because how well she just handles anything that comes her way. I think there's just I can't really put it to words like how much I appreciated working with her alongside of her and learning from her and yeah, coming to her with things, right? And getting her input and her advice. And that was just like a great experience. Having a manager that you love is like you hit the jackpot. It's the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah.
And I think that was our cases. We had really great people and with us and working with them, you just learn so much. And then again, yeah, with peers, peer mentorship I'm like a huge believer of that. I've talked about that before, how, and like the people that we surround ourselves with. And, this is a great segue into Latinas in Tech, but I'm going to wait until a little bit, but just like the people that we work with, in different communities, it's just, they're so valuable and everybody has so much input, like so much great things about them that you appreciate, you have like your MySpace top 8. You have every person had a thing.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Like you just, even like, if it was like even a speaker at an event like Latinas in Tech, you admire them from far, or you follow them on LinkedIn and you just see the work, and that just, even that is enough for you, to like help guide you, just those little connections go a long way. And I feel like sometimes it goes back to like being shy or, approaching people. It's like making sure you let people know that too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So great segue. Latinas in Tech. We mentioned it a lot. I was really excited for you to come on the show because I really wanted to wait until you were in the show to basically talk about the Latinas in Tech and like in Latinas in Tech Chicago and what we do here. Because that was like probably one of like my proudest moments, like I think for both of us, it was great to basically start a community here in Chicago and kind of like learn as we go, because we had no idea what we were doing, but we just decided that this was going to happen. And I mean, I can start this story, but basically, I want you to hear your side of the story too, because my side was I just felt lonely, in the tech community. Like there weren't many other Latinas around me, and I really just wanted to have that space where I could have mis comadres. Like I wanted to talk to people, like other women that could really understand like what was happening and what was going on. And it was like around the time that all those kids were put in cages that it was just really traumatic, and I just wanted to talk about it, and I needed someone to really understand that. And I think you have one or two good friends at work that are maybe Latinas, but you just need more, like you're not satisfied. I feel like sometimes you just need to make that community where you can go to and turn to on a daily basis, and not just one for special things. But so yeah, that's really kind of what pushed me to just want to do something. And I literally just Googled Latinas in Tech and found them in California. And I know that your experience with them obviously was more extensive already. You were already kind of like a member over there. And then we were connected by Gretel to talk about, because I know she told me that there was someone in Chicago that wanted to start this process too. And that we should bring a Latinas in Tech chapter to Chicago. And this would be the person you should talk to so that the two of you could work together and blah, blah, blah. It was great. It was just kind of magic how it happened. But I want to hear your side too on how you got involved with Latinas in Tech over there, and then coming here and hearing from me and all of that. Like what's your take on everything?
Yeah. So I first heard of Latinas in Tech when I was in the Silicon Valley. I don't know how it happened in order, but I had met Gretel prior or post to going to Latinas in Tech through a reporter friend. And he connected a bunch of Latinas, and that's how I met Gretel. But then, similar to you, Cecilia, I remember I was at that point in my career where I was like, I need to go to more events. I need to like learn more about other people in the tech industry. And I remember just doing a search, and I believe Latinas in Tech had popped up, and I was like, okay, I need to go to this event. Prior to that, I don't think I had too much knowledge about the organization. Um, and that's where I got my first exposure to Latinas in Tech. And just from the get go, from going to the one of the events there, I was just like mind blown and like amazed at how many Latina professionals were under one roof. And this is at a point in my time where I was just learning about the importance of like representation and, you know, Latinas in the tech industry. You know, when being in the tech industry was mostly obviously male dominated. There wasn't too many other, you know, Yvonne's or someone like Yvonne out there, you know, going to some of these events. But it just felt like I just felt like it was like almost like home. It felt, you know, like comforting to know there's other women like there. And then even when I started going more to these events, you heard stories. I heard stories that were similar than mine. Like, you know, there's one, you know, just like their journeys and what you feel like, what's that imposter syndrome. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
So then I when I came to Chicago, I remember I kept poking at Gretel, like we should start a chapter in Chicago. And then that's where I met Cecilia. And it's been such a wild journey. It's creating these events have obviously been amazing, but I think just seeing the community here and how welcoming and inspiring. There's so many other professionals out here that I've met through Latinas in Tech.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be 2 years in January. We technically started working on the organization, like on bringing the chapter, November of 2018. That's when we first met for coffee to go talk about this idea of like bringing a chapter here and kind of like starting to plan out like who could we tap into for resources, who could help us like host our first event. You know, it was great. And we're coming into 2 years. In January is when technically we officially launched in January 2019. But the work started before that, you know, like the work started in 2018 and then our first event was in March of 2019. But yeah, it's been definitely such a rewarding experience. I mean, I think for both of us, like it's opened more doors, you know, to like really connect with other professionals in Chicago and other organizations, and it's been such a fun experience.
Yeah, and I have to give it to you, Cecilia. You know, you've been part of this community. You've done so much other work, and I feel like again this whole mentor thing. I think I look to you and learned so much from you, and I feel like as I started this chapter with you, I was learning so much about the Chicago tech community at the same time, and it's crazy to think we're about to do 2 years, like you mentioned, like where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, if you even go to just the latinasintech.org website, like we've come such a long way, even them, you know, they started with a tiny group in California, and now we have like almost 13 chapters, and this like amazing job board and partnerships, and you know, we have a summit now that we go to every year, and it's just like it keeps growing and it keeps growing. Similar to Techeria, you know, that they partner a lot with Latinos in Tech, and you know, there's so many folks out there that are Latino and Latinx that we just, you know, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to be a part of this ride, and it's definitely been my favorite time. Has been kind of bringing this to Chicago and having this community and we're going to keep going until we can, right? Like until others come and kind of take over. Like, but I mean, hopefully, because you know, we also are not going to take over forever.
We have to pass the torch, right?
Yeah.
Torch to the next, the next leaders in the community. No, like you said, it's honestly, this has been the most rewarding part of my professional career, is being part of Latinas in tech.
Yeah, I mean, like I've connected with women from all over the states because they're in different chapters. I have friends like, DC, in Boston, in LA, like Mexico City. Like there's so many women that are just so badass that I just
Yeah.
love them, like chingonas, right? Like hashtag
Yeah.
chingonas.
Yeah, it's just you meet so many incredible people out there with so many incredible stories and just what they're doing. It's insane and inspiring all at the same time.
Yeah, so I really just love. I wanted to talk to you about that. The whole like that this experience has been incredible, and I'm just glad that we keep getting more and more people. Because I remember when we first started, we're like, even if we have 15 people to show up for our first event, we'll consider it a success.
Successful, yes.
And then we ended up having more than 80 people at our event. And then, we created a Facebook page. It was what, three of us at the beginning when we were looking for more. And then in like a matter of days, we were at 200. And then in a matter of in like, the first 5 months, we were like 300. And now we're like almost at 500. We have like 480 something people, 85. And we're getting out there into like high schools and colleges and talking to more younger generations about, and younger Latinas, about what they can do in tech, and that's really our focus for like, it was a lot of our focus for this year, and it's going to continue to be a focus for next year, like where we are tapping into the younger generation and talking to Latinas and little Latinas, in high schools and colleges, and really just creating those partnerships and connecting with them and helping them and leverage, so they can leverage this group and really just grow. So I'm super excited to see what's next for us in the next year. Obviously, like with COVID, we had to pivot a lot this year, but it's still been such a fun journey. And now it's not just you and I. Now we have a whole board. Now we have 5 people like doing this work. And in a couple of years, I'm sure that we're gonna transition and there's gonna be more people taking over, and it's gonna be great. I'm really so excited to see where we'll go from here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to pass it to you, Cecilia. How has it been for you? And touched on this a little bit, is, when we started and where we are now, what are your, some of your key reflections, since we are about to hit our 2 year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When I didn't really know what to expect when we first started this. I thought maybe we'll have a few dozen women that are going to be in tech and helping us, create events and learn from one another. I didn't expect to have 400 people interested in this and going to our events and chatting with us. And I think I was naive. I was just kind of like, this is going to be a little group and it's going to be great and we're going to have fun. I didn't think it was going to be like this magnitude of growth in the last 2 years, and like connections, all over the states, and opportunities all over the states with different companies and partnering and having those interactions, and being on the radar, because we represent an organization. So a lot of companies in Chicago reach out to us to make those connections to like the HQ, or even just to come to events and really like connect and be represented. So it's definitely a whole new thing. I mean, because of Latinas in Tech, and this, like the Cook County Council of Digital Equity reached out to us to participate in their new advisory to President Preckwinkle. So I wouldn't have dreamed of that before. I don't think it's been such a rewarding experience. Like I can't say it enough. Like it's opened the door to different opportunities and like learning opportunities and community opportunities and networking opportunities. It's just like, it's a ridiculous thing. So I am very proud of the work that we've done. I think I'm very proud of the group. I'm very proud of all of the relationships that have come out of those groups, because we have connected women to jobs. We have connected, other women that eventually like partner and become partners and do things together. So I think you can't really quantify the amount of things that we've done that or the things that have come out of our group, but you feel it, like you feel the energy, you feel like the love for this group, this community of women like are so great. It's really inspiring to just see the amount of connection and the amount of respect in this group. It's just great.
Yes, I 100% agree with you on all of that, especially the connections of people, the willingness to that people are willing to connect with others and help others for like a job opportunity, or even just for asking a question about tech. People, this community is so willing to help, and that's what it's about, right? It's about helping others. I feel like that's what Latina in Tech is all about. It's helping each other, progress. And
yeah, it's definitely been such a wild ride, and I'm glad that it was with you. I'm glad that it's been such an awesome experience, that we keep working and doing things for the community. I don't, this is the kind of thing that I love. Like, I don't get tired of this. We don't get paid for this. This is our time. This is free time. This is the time that we just put into our community because we're doing our part in making that connection and giving back, this kind of work back to our roots.
Yeah, because I feel like me and you have similar backgrounds. Like, we know what it's like to be the first or get into tech. And I always go back to this. I reflect on like that Yvonne that first started, and she knew nothing. She was learning a lot on the way. And it's like, if we can help those, like the youth and other Latinas, Latinos that want to get involved in tech, it goes a long way, even if it's just a connection and talking to them, over a 30-minute, now we're all virtual, like a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad that it's also been like a rewarding experience for you. It's good to, to share that.
And I have to say, I've been very lucky to know Cecilia, know this Cecilia in Chicago, and work with you. And it's like, Cecilia, you are so, you're so, experienced and knowledgeable in so many areas. And just working with you on Latinas in Tech, and now, we have the team, we have Carla, Daisy, Andrea. I feel like it's just been great to like, that I got to meet that person from Chicago to start this chapter.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I also do want to give a shout out to Daisy and Carla and Andrea. I think they're doing great work. It's easy to work with all of you. You're all incredible. Like, you have your own strengths too, and I think I appreciate that you are giving me shout outs. I also have the time, don't know what I'm doing, but I feel like I'm winging it. So I appreciate that it's coming across well.
Hey, we're all learning.
Seriously. But let's switch gears a little bit to like what are some of the resources that you've used kind of like to upskill, or just to kind of how you lead your life, right? Like, whether that's a book, a blog, or a podcast that has helped you influence kind of like your career trajectory, or just resources in general. What's something that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, it honestly, it has to go to, I have to say two things, or maybe even three, but the network that I have, I feel like I've gone a lot to networks and mentors to help guide me throughout my professional career, whether, it's whether it has been during my tech career or just my professional development, or just someone to speak to when you've had one of those days where you just need to talk to someone. I feel like my network, and my mentors that I consider mentors, have really guided me throughout my career. And that goes to also the Latinas in Tech community. I feel like just from the events that we've done, Cecilia, I learned so much about the tech world that and just professional development and one's career journey. I learned so much and been exposed to so much just by being at those events and just hearing how people have navigated through their careers and challenges. And it just goes to show, we're not alone. We all have, we're all going to have those challenges. We're going to have wins, and just this community and through mentors, I've learned a lot about how to navigate through some of those things. But there's, when I'm not, going to events or doing events with you, Cecilia, and the team, I'll listen to podcasts as well. I think I've really geeked out on podcasts over the last 2 years. There's really this one good one called the Gold Digger. It's called The Goal. So like your goal,
the Gold Digger.
Yeah. GOAL. I listened to her on and off, and it's about, about your career, entrepreneurship, business, social media. It's a little bit of everything. And then I love listening to one that I started re-listening to is TED Radio Hour. And it's just similar to like the TED Talks, and it goes to, and it all ties back to hearing people's journeys and how they've navigated through their careers. I think to me, whether it's like hearing about your career, Cecilia, or one of the speakers at an event or someone on TED Talk, that has really been my source to kind of navigating through my career and my professional development, and my family. I have to give it up to, my parents, my mom, and my sisters when I send them those texts, like where I need some sort of, guidance, and that goes a long way. That goes a long way for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like family will always be there as a resource no matter what. Like, wholeheartedly agree with that. And speaking of like, just, experiences and journeys and all of that, what is next for you? Like, what does the future hold for Yvonne?
I've been the type of person to take it day by day, because I feel like when I start thinking too far into the future, I get myself into the weeds of my mind, just like, well, what about this? Or, like, what can you do in this path? But I think for me, the biggest thing, the biggest two things I'm focused on right now is continuing to, progress in my career in public relations, like continuing to grow there. I know there's a lot of growth for me and still a lot to go for me to, continue to be this person I want to be in PR, continue to be an expert in my field and just keep learning, as I go. And I think the second one, and this is a big one for me, is finding other ways to get involved. Latinas in Tech has, like you said, Cecilia, has opened a lot of doors, a lot of opportunities, and then just meeting other professionals and hearing about the work they're doing for the community has really made me think about other ways about how I can continue to get involved, in other areas. So I think for now, those are the two biggest things I'm focused on, and just taking it day by day, because I know as soon as I start thinking about that 5-year plan or that 3-year plan, then I just get, my mind, I just start mixing different goals, and I'm like, okay, no, you take it day by day.
Day by day. I like that. Yeah, day by day. I also don't do like a 3-year or 5-year or 10-year plan. I don't even know what I'm gonna do in like a month. So definitely agree. Well, I want to give I want to give people the chance to connect with you. So I am wondering, how can people connect with you? Do you, either LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever you want to share with people?
So I recently took like a social media hiatus, if that's the phrase. So I'm mostly available on LinkedIn. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always willing to connect and talk to people. I love hearing from other people. So yeah.
Okay, great.
But I feel like social media was taking over a little too over my life. So I was like, I think it's time to let go,
Yeah. So, did you watch Social Dilemma?
I'm halfway through it.
Oh yeah, that's
yeah.
I'm this close to doing it as well.
It's definitely what is it? It struck a chord about just what social media does, to you if you don't realize how much time you're spending on there and the influence it has on you.
Seriously.
But yeah, LinkedIn where I'm at. So
all right. Sounds good. I'll make sure to put that on the show notes as well. Well, I mean, thank you so much, Yvonne, for coming to the show. It was great chatting with you. I'm happy that you are my team and my friend, and I can't wait to see what's next for us in 2021.
Same, Cecilia. It's been incredible to work with you, and I'm always looking at what you're continuing to do with Latinas in Tech or your podcast and some of the other work that you've been working. So I'm looking forward to what's to come for us as in Latinas in Tech as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Yvonne. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Chicago Techies podcast. If you enjoyed listening, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review on iTunes. Let's continue the conversation on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us at Chicago Techies on all social media channels. Thank you again, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.